Hello and welcome to DevBytes. My name is Jan-Felix Schmarkert and I'm from the Android Developer Relations team. In this episode we are looking at the hierarchy viewer and how you can use that tool to fix overdraw issues in your application. So let's have a look at our demo application here. So this is looks a bit like an RSS reader. We're calling it the Bacon Reader application. So you can select articles here on the side and you can read some text here in this frame here. This is a quite standard Android layout where we have a fragment here for the list on the side, and we have one fragment here on the right-hand side for the main content. So let's look at hierarchy viewer, and I will show you how what the application looks like in hierarchy viewer. So the hierarchy viewer application is part of the Android device monitor. You can simply open it up by clicking on the hierarchy viewer button up here. So once you've loaded in your application, you've selected your activity, you get this tree up here, and this tree basically shows you what your views in your application actually look like. So in this case here, you can see we have a linear layout, and this is where our entire application lives. So we can drill down a bit further. So you can see here we have a list view, and this is coming from the fragment that we have on the left-hand side. And you can see here this is what we have in this list view. Here, this is what's drawn inside it. You also notice that we have these colored dots here, and these dots indicate how quickly each of these views was drawn. So green means it was very fast, yellow means it was drawn faster than 50% of the views, and red means it's one of the slowest views in your view hierarchy. So this is actually quite a nice tool that allows you to drill down and see what your application actually looks like when you run it. And in particular when you use some more complicated layout, this really helps you troubleshoot some of the layout issues. So if you want to use the hierarchy viewer in your own application, you have to include the view server class in your application. You can get it from this website down here that's on the screen, and I'll show you what that looks like. So you basically just drop it into your application, in this case here in Android Studio, and then you have to add a few calls inside your activity lifecycle, in the activity you want to look at a bit in more detail. So you have to add a call in the onCreate method, and in onDestroy, and in onResume, and that allows the hierarchy viewer to connect to your application and load in the views just as we've seen. So let's see how we can use the hierarchy viewer to debug one very common problem that you often have in your application, and that's called overdraw. And overdraw means that you're drawing the same pixel multiple times on the screen, and obviously that's really bad for performance, especially if you define a background multiple times and it's always the same color. It doesn't make much sense to draw it multiple times on the screen. So if you go to the developer options on your device, there's an option called Show GPU Overdraw, and that gives you a nice visual indication of which pixels you're drawing multiple times. Red and green means you're drawing it once or twice, and then light red and red means you're drawing it more than 3, 4, 5 times. That's obviously really bad for your application. And if you look here at our app, you can see that we have the background of each of the list view items is drawn multiple times, and then we also have a weird rectangle behind our main body of text. And if you remember, our application was completely right. We're not using any background colors or anything else whatsoever. There's clearly something going on that we can optimize here. So let's have a look at the hierarchy viewer and see how we can use it to figure out what exactly is going on here. So here's our hierarchy viewer. Here's our linear layout that defines the right-hand side of the application, the details fragment. And you can see here that we have a white background behind the main body of text. So that's the problem, because we already have a main background defined in the application. So this is something we should investigate a bit further. If you click on the article body down here, you can clearly see there's a white background behind it. So that's one way you can see what's being drawn on screen. Another really useful feature is the option to export your entire view layers as a PSD file. So there's this option up here, and if you click that, you can save all window layers as a Photoshop file. And I've already done this here. If you open up Photoshop, this is what it looks like. And each of the layers in your view that's visible on the screen is also visible in your Photoshop file. So down here we have the decor view, and that's the main window background. So if you turn that off, you can see there is still a lot of white, but the window background already was white, so that's a bit strange. And here we have a linear layout that has a white background. That's again a bit strange. We have another linear layout. See, this is coming from each of our list view items. And again, there's a background right here. So this is one way that you can use hierarchy viewer to see how your views are drawn on the screen. Another really useful feature I would like to show you is this here. So we have our preview here that shows you what this particular view actually draws to the screen. And if you double click on this, you get a bigger view, but you can also change the background color of that view. So in this case, because we have defined white as our background color for this layout, for this linear layout, you won't see any changes. But this can also help you to see what's transparent and what's not transparent in your application. So let's fix this. You know, we don't need to define the background multiple times. So if you look at our code, here, let's go to Android Studio. And the first thing we want to fix up is the main background. So we had our two panes, and if you remember, there was a linear layout that already had a background. So let's get rid of that one first. So that's coming from the activity 2 pane XML. And up here you can see straight away we are defining a background color. You don't need that. You can get rid of that. The next thing we had a background color in our article detail view, you know, with the body of text at the bottom. So let's get rid of that here as well. Color white. Let's just remove that. And then lastly, we also had a background color for each list view item. You know, the list of in the list of bacons on the left-hand side. And our background is actually a selector drawable. And you can see here we have different states depending on if the particular item is active. So this is how we are indicating which article you're looking at in the application. And down here on the in this drawable down here is the one that's used by default when it's in a neutral state. And again, it's white, but we can just make that transparent. And there's actually a transparent color that you can use. You can just from the framework. So we can just make that transparent. And if you run our application again, you will see that we have much less overdraw. So if we go back to our device, let's just wait for it to compile. And here it is. You know, the green rectangle we had behind our caption text is gone. This is looking much cleaner. There's no red. There's only a few blue spots where we have text that we actually need to draw to the screen. So it's much better. So you've seen how you can use the overdraw setting in the developer options and the hierarchy viewer to investigate overdraw issues in your application. So I suggest you just enable the setting and open up your own application to see how you can optimize it further.